Hi, this is Esther with Discover Your Origins. In this video, we are returning to the case of James L. Thomas, and our research objective has been to try to find evidence that ties James L. Thomas to his father, John L. Thomas. This has been complicated by there being two James Lloyd Thomas profiles here, and each one has a different wife and children. And so we're also wrestling with trying to determine which one is the correct profile. They could be two different men, they could also be duplicates. And so we've had some very interesting research that we've done in the previous videos. If you're interested, I've created a playlist where you can go back and watch some of the previous videos. We're going to look at John L. Thomas in this video, but before I do that, I want to catch up with some housekeeping research that always needs to be done when you're working on a complicated project. So let's jump over, and here's our research plan, and I'm probably going to add to the research plan, which is normal when you're doing a research project like this. You're going to have questions come up, and so you want to record those questions so that you can keep track of them and look at things later. So we've already looked at some things that I've included on the research plan. You can see here we're going to look at the military packets and the pension record, which we did in the previous video. I've been working on the timeline, and so we probably need to add to this as far as the military service records. I've got my notes from the Civil War research we did in the previous video. And then I created a fan chart. So this is a table that includes the friends, associates, and neighbors that we're running across in our research. And you can see here, I didn't put in my complete citations for this. This is just a really simple chart. And these are people that we're going to want to research later. So we're going to try to keep track of that as we go through the probate records as well. And then we have our research log. So you definitely want to keep track of everything that you look at, create the source citations, and I hope, at least in this particular case, this leads to a research paper. Even if it is for your own use, it's really great to be able to put all of the pieces together in a document that shows your thinking and evidence, and everything is really helpful for you. And it's also helpful if you share it with other researchers. And so definitely collect your source citations and where you look at things in your notes, because you may use that in the future. All right, let's jump back over to James L. Thomas, and we'll go to John L. Thomas's page here. All right, so here's John L. Thomas. He was born in 1803 in Virginia. He died in Alabama in 1854. And he's got a wife and several children here. We've got 14 total listed. And if we work out which of the James Lloyd Thomas, it's going to go down to 13. But they've got a lot of children here. Some of these children died as young children, I think. So that this Martha here died early. And some of these others, this Jonathan, I'm not sure about. He may have died young as well. Up here in the sources, we have a state file, and you can see I've already looked at it. And the person who attached this in Family Search did a really great service in that they looked at it, this estate file, and added some notes to this source here on Family Search, and it's going to really help us look at this file. A probate record should provide some kind of evidence of the family members, the property. It may have names of witnesses that are family members if they're extended family. And so it's really important to go through these documents carefully. And I did find something that I think is really exciting and might help sort things out between the two James Thomas profiles. So wait patiently as we go through here so you can see. In these notes here, which are really helpful, they said that this file folder contains probate records for 3 John Thomases. And John L. Thomas, the one that we're looking at here, is the son of a John Thomas. And so there's some documents related to John Thomas Sr.'s death, and John L. Thomas was the administrator for that estate. Then it also contains documents related to John L. Thomas's probate. And so you can see here there's a list of the images that refer specifically to John L. Thomas. So we're going to look at just a few of them. We're not going to look at all of them. Although I would recommend going through each page of this probate and transcribing each page. And I know that's going to sound like a lot of work, but I promise I did it on the will. I transcribed the will and it highlighted something that may blow open this case. And so I'm going to recommend that you do it on the rest of them so you can find some additional evidence. All right. So what pages are we going to look at? We're going to look at image 3 or page 3. We're going to look at the will. And then we're going to look at the citation to the heirs. So let's jump into the probate here, and we'll open this in a new tab so we can come back. I want to get this all set up so that we can look at things a little bit later with the family. So, okay, here's the file folder, and we want to look at image 3 from this file folder. So let's see if we can't find that. There we go. Okay, image 3 is a list of the heirs, which is amazing because it gives us a list of the children, which provides that evidence that we need to tie the John L. Thomas to his family. And this is amazing. So we have Martha Thomas, widow. And then we have the list of the children. We have Jesse, Louis, George, Rebecca, wife of Jackson, and this is Dennis. It may not look like it, but I've already looked ahead. Margaret, wife of Simeon Dennis, and they are living in Fayette County. Then we have James. And you notice that there's a box around these other children, and they are minors. And that's what this word here that's vertical says, minors. James, Thomas, William, Mary, Emily, Prudence, and Narcissa. And a child would be considered a minor if they were under the age of 21. And our James would have been about 20 years old when his father died. So he's just barely a minor. All right, so let's jump ahead and we will go to the will. It'll take me just a second to get to the will. Okay, so here is the will, and it is a little bit hard to read. There is actually text on the reverse side of this that I'll show you here in just a second, but I did transcribe this document. But the thing that I want to point out here are the names. We have Samuel J. Owen, Jesse Connell, and Alan Ray. This Jesse Connell here is the name that is going to bust open this case. Often when we look at a document like this, we don't pay attention to the witnesses, but in this case, we want to. All right, so I did transcribe this document. And so here it is. I did it in a LibreOffice. I'm going to copy it into my Google Drive. But John L. Thomas's will says that he names his wife, Martha, to be the executor of the estate and that she inherits everything to use in her natural life. And then when she dies, the property gets divided equally among the children. I find that a little bit unusual because he did have 3 adult sons and they didn't inherit anything until Martha also dies. Usually the father will give something to the oldest sons and then a third of the estate to the wife. In this case, Martha got everything. So that was interesting. And here is the names. And this Jesse Connell caught my attention, and I will show you why as we go through. All right. Here's the reverse side of that will. And there is text on here. And so I did not transcribe the back side of this. You can see there it is also crossed out. But this does need to be transcribed as well. You can see, I can see the names Samuel J. Owen here and Alan Ray. And I hope Jesse Connell is mentioned as well in this page. I think that would be important. So I am going to recommend, it's going to take a minute to transcribe this second page, but I think that would be valuable. All right, so let's go to the next document that I wanted to show, and it's going to be a list of the heirs again. So give me 1 second and we'll find that. Okay, so here is a list of the children again, the heirs. It's a citation. They accept the due and legal service of this notice, which has to do with the will. And you can see the older children, Jesse, Lewis, and George, they sign their names here. And then Martha, who has the charge of the minors. And so here's James again, William, Thomas, Mary, Emily, Prudence, Narcissa, under the age of 21. And here's Martha. And then this is agreed, or I'm not sure what this word is here, in the presence of Alan Ray. So he was a witness. I don't know if Alan Ray was a lawyer, but we definitely want to find out more about him. All right, so let me show you how I was able to make some connections. When I look at people in Family Search, I will often try to do a descendancy view because I want to see who the family is connected to. And that could be through marriage or whatnot. So I'm just clicking on the profile and then clicking tree. So that's going to give me a descendancy view. And we do know that the two older daughters married some men named Dennis. So here's Rebecca, Andrew Jackson, Dennis. And Margaret marries Simeon Dennis. So we're going to look at the Dennis family in a second. But the Connell name really drew my attention, and that is we're going to have to go and look at William May. So who's William May? So let's go back and we will go to the second James L. Thomas profile. And this James Thomas is married to Sarah May. So we're going to go to her person page. And this is just me follow how my brain connected all of these dots. And I wanted to look at William May's descendants. So let's do that. Now, William May and his family need to be cleaned up on Family Search and researched. I do have that on our research plan. So we're going to add some more specifics here. But William May is the brother of Sarah. He marries Mary Ann Davis, but he dies in 1860. Mary Ann Davis marries Harvey G. Connell and then marries a Daniel B. Dennis. If this is all correct, it needs to be verified. But I found it curious of these connections. And so let's go and look at this Harvey Connell. Let's go to his person page. All right. Now we want to look for a Jesse Connell because he was a witness to the will of John L. Thomas. And if you look, here's a Jesse Mac Connell. He is the brother of Harvey G. Connell. All right, so there's a connection between the Connell family and the May family. Let me go back to that tree view. Okay, so William May, married to Mary Ann Davis. Mary Ann Davis later marries Harvey Connell and a Daniel Dennis. We need to look at that too. But let me scroll down here. Here's Edna May, and she's listed as having married Harvey G. Cornell. That is a transcription error. We need to go and look at the actual marriage certificate that's attached to this profile, but it is Harvey G. Connell. So the Connell family and the May family are fairly close, I think, because of these marriages. That is a really good connection between the Connells, the Mays, and then the Thomases. Now, what about the Dennis family? So this Mary Ann Davis also supposedly marries a this Daniel Dennis. So let's just make a note of Daniel Dennis. And we're going to go back to James L. Thomas. So let's go put him in the tree. Okay, so we've got Simeon Dennis here and Andrew Jackson Dennis. So let's go and look at these men. Okay, so we've got definitely some cleanup work that needs to happen here. But here we go. We've got a Jesse Dennis. Here's Andrew Jackson and Simeon. So they are brothers. But where's Daniel? Let's go back one generation. So let's look at Jesse Dennis here. We'll go back one generation. And there's Daniel Dennis. And this Daniel Dennis supposedly marries to William May and Harvey Connell. Now, I want to look at this a little bit closer because if it's true, then Daniel would have been 60 years old when they married. Totally possible. We got to double check all the source records attached to these people. So let's make some notes. We'll add a tab here. Oh, no, we'll go to our fans research here and we'll start adding some people. All right, I'm not going to take the time to create all of my notes on camera, but just know I'm going to add some notes about all these connections in my fan chart here. And I also want to add to my research plan to go through and verify through records all of the connections. But what does that mean? Let's go back to the James L. Thomas profile. And this is the profile with Sarah May. So I think that this profile is the actual son of John L. Thomas. We can't say with certainty yet that this other James L. Thomas is the same person, that these profiles need to be merged together. We can say, I think, with indirect evidence, and we would need to go through and verify all the connections and record it in our research log and maybe even write it up to show that this James L. Thomas that marries Sarah May is the one that is the son of John L. Thomas and Martha Edwards. Now, we did find that Civil War military record that there was a medical card for James Thomas from Autauga County. That could be the James Thomas that we're looking at now. We don't know if he survived the war because Sarah is by herself in 1870. And so we still have to rule out a divorce or separation. And once we do that, then we'll have a little better idea. In the next video, we're going to look at our next steps. What can we do to further solidify this research here and see if we can't determine if this other James Lloyd Thomas is a duplicate. We're going to look for some additional parental candidates using the census, and it should be an exciting episode. I think we made some real progress here, and so stay tuned. It's getting really exciting. I have links in the description box below to a blog article that goes along with this, and if you want to see what happens next, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.